Welcome, friends, to From Busy to Rich, the podcast designed to inspire advisors to increase their profitability and quality of life for them and those they serve. I'm Justin Lakin, and with me is Wes Young. We'll be your hosts today for this exciting journey we're on. In today's episode, we will officially be proving that giants do exist. I'm kidding, but in all seriousness, today's guest is a giant in his own right. Physically, yes, coming in, over 6.5 feet tall. And then also, really, today's focus is going to be on his personality and just business. He's also a giant in a different way. So with that, Wes, why don't you give us an introduction to our guest and kind of where we're going today?
Yeah, man, I'm so excited to have one of my best friends on the podcast today, and just an incredible person, first and foremost. I've known him through basically so many iterations of the transformations that he's made throughout his business life, but also, just love his character, love his heart. And he's one of the best thinkers that I know. Thinks deeply about things. If we frequently will have ideas that we'll call each other and just talk about them. And it's not a judgmental talk. It's more of like a game of, I'm going to throw the ball to you and you throw something back to me. And we always end up coming out with some better stuff as a result. So, my friend, Whitney Jurjevich, is a great businessman. And Whitney, man, I'm so happy you're on the show today. Thanks for joining us, brother.
Wow. That was, I don't know if I can live up to the introduction there, but I'm very happy to be here.
Awesome.
Thank you.
What I'd love to start with is, I know we're going to go a lot of places today, but I'd love to start by talking a little bit about what's life like today. You know, I know you've experienced, you've got a great business model in the niche that you're in, and you've built businesses. You've had some really big exits of businesses that you've built, and you continue to like pump up the game of where you're going next. You've got a pretty cool life, I'd say, in the fun stuff that you've grown. And then I want to take a turn from that. So I want you to start there. I want to go back in time. You know, you and I have known each other, I think, close to a decade now. You've got to be grounded.
Oh, more than that. More than that.
Yeah.
So and be 11 or so years now.
Yeah. So I want you to talk about your extraordinarily silver spoon in the mouth beginnings. Life was easy. It was all handed to you. So that people, and clearly everybody will know that's in jest. Because Whitney was in a very different season of life when I met him. And just because sometimes I think here's what happens is they're going to hear what you're about to say and go, that's so far away from where I am. And while Whitney may be in a very different business than what we are, all of you advisors that are listening, it's really not that different in a lot of ways, because some of the core thinking and principles that I've seen Whit implement over time and the way he moves and thinks, it's the same fundamentals we need to move forward in what we're doing and to help our other clients that are business owners or that are highly performing corporate executives move forward. So Whit, I'm just going to ask, can you just dive in, man, and talk to us a little bit about what a day in the life of you, a year in the life of you is like today?
Yeah. Today, you know, it's interesting. You're catching me at a very, very transitional period in this journey for me. People always like to, when they hear my story, they point out how, wow, you've done this and you were a Marine and you helicopters and this and you did this, and they see it because what they see is all the high points.
Yeah.
And they think that that's what got me or made me or produced me as this guy that you've described, right?
Yeah.
But in fact, it's all of the really, really low points in between those high points that turns out where all the reflecting and the knowledge and the wisdom and the pieces that you put together about, you know, why things went a certain way, what transpired to get you where you are. And, you know, I'm finishing at probably one of those low points right now. And, coming out of that season where, you know, now I'm headed back to, you know, what I would say is probably another high point. But really, in truth, I've had so many transitions in life that I've had the opportunity to have a lot of low points to use to reflect on. And when you say, oh, in jest, you got it all handed to you, and the silver spoon and all that business, right? Like, so yeah, there's people out there certainly that have had lots handed to them. And some of those people have done bad things and negative things and gone backwards with it. And some of those people have taken those things and turned them into, 10 times what they were. And what got handed to me was a lot of adversity that I had to learn, perseverance and all these things, all these tools that later came into play, so that I could be where I am today. So in a way, life handed me this, it just handed it to me. It looked a lot different than it did when it handed it to other people. Like if your last name was Rockefeller or something,
Sure. Yeah. And to put that, could be a good, you could do a lot of good with a hand up, I think, when things are there. That just what path. But talk about what you do and what things are like today.
Today, I'm a dad. I got 3 kids. One is turning 8 tomorrow. Then it'll be 9 and 11. And my wife, Ashley, and I, we work on raising these guys, so that, they can have it better than we did, both, emotionally, the relationships in life and, the way that the opportunities that they have in life. As far as my business, I have, a small team and I manage, and develop and own and operate real estate, RV and boat storage is what I do. And I work with the team, developing them and coaching them. And, what I really try to do is, help them to build thinking so that they can, it's easy for me to tell everybody what to do, but I've found that only makes my life more difficult and gives me more work to do. So right now, what I really focus on is our new projects, the development of the new projects, feasibility and things like that, and developing the team so that, when it comes to operations, meaning like the actual tenants and leasing the facilities up and customer management, they're really good at problem solving themselves, understanding, where our philosophy is, what our culture is, what matters, what doesn't matter, so that, when situations come up that they have to make decisions for, they're not arbitrarily trying to just guess what they think. They go, okay, well, we know what's important here. We got that from Whitney, and these decisions will feed into that. So this is what we'll do. And, by and large, it works pretty well, because either they do something that I wouldn't have done, and they go, wow, okay, see, that didn't go well. And that's great. I love it when I almost enjoy that more than when they go, oh, we did this and it worked great.
Yeah.
So that's mostly what my gang is. But at the same time, like, I'm literally sitting in one of my facilities right now, and I came here to stake down a couple of curb parking blocks in a parking space to help Danielle out, my manager, because, there's 2 parking spaces, and I'm like, well, I have some free time in my hands, and, I know how to do this kind of stuff because I come from, manual labor and working, and, so, hey, oh, sure, I'll pitch in, and, you need me to do something? Fine, I can go do that. I can fix a thing for you or do whatever, that kind of stuff. So, it's some of that and a lot of the other.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd love it. Could you talk a little bit about, like, you built your first round of these while still working on, like, I'd call it round 2 and 3, and you had an opportunity. It was one of those that actually you weren't looking for. It came to you to to provide an injection of not only liquidity but a pretty nice exit at some point in your life, and it was I would say at the time a pretty hard decision for you because you saw that, hey, I could keep owning all of this, which a lot of people do, and that's not necessarily bad or wrong, but for your life, because one of the things I also think you've managed well is like, what does a rich life look like to you? And so you could keep like, because you for a lot of years, because of necessity at first, I'd say, but eventually, by choice, just drove every extra dollar with very little margin back into the expansion. And I think it was like a tipping point for you where you said, hey, I don't really have to do that to keep growing the whole thing. And it's probably time, just my next rich life iteration. There's some things I'd like to do before I'm, 70 years old that while my kids are young, we can do some things, have some experiences that, again, if they weren't there, you would create other experiences a different way. But, it created a venue for, you don't travel a lot by taking long car rides. You can. You prefer the air by the airplane that you own and fly yourself, right? So you still combine a little of the manual with the with the coolness factor of luxury. So and you got a couple houses that you can go visit and experience cool lifestyle there. So somebody observes that part of your life. From the exit, just anything when that first exit occurred, anything you want to talk about just that helps you decide what you want to do there, that you want to speak to before we kind of dive into the past, and then some core principles that help you get to where you are.
On the first exit, it was not planned at all. It wasn't anything that I really contemplated. To be truthful, it was more of a how do I say this in a fit for user language? It was kind of like an FU kind of a moment with a group that we've been talking to.
That's what you mean. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And they wanted to buy all of our stuff, and meaning the two that I owned, and then there was 5 others that my partner and I were developing. And we were going strong on I forget 2 or 3 of them at the time. They were in Lisa. Anyway, I thought it might be a good time to sell the 2 that I owned, and we let them, look at them, and they gave us some just offensively low numbers. And at the time, I hadn't ever negotiated transactions of this size on either end. And I had an idea in my head of what I thought they both were together in the marketplace. And they were just so below that. And, I was at that point, I built enough confidence in myself and enough accomplishments that, I wasn't going to, listen to these guys, even though they had lots of really cool bylines underneath their names of, things they've done and who they've managed money for and billions of dollars of this AUM and yada, yada, yada. And I said, you know what? I'm going to see what the market thinks of these things, because they were trying to get them off market, and I took them out. I ended up getting 50% more than the number that I thought I was going to get, that they were actually worth. So, and it was such a, was not the kind of thing that would have been responsible to turn down. So that's how that happened.
Yeah, I mean, I love it because what it is, and I see this occur a lot, is this idea of don't trade what you want ultimately for what you can have immediately. And what you did with that, because it was a sizable, even though it was a low, I mean, and you're, as an educated observer in that space, you kind of had a feeling it was low, but man, it was a lot of money. And it was one of those deals that would immediately allow you to do a lot of cool things that you wanted. But the kind of professional patience you had there to go, look, I'm just unwilling, and it's exciting and it's cool. But man, I'm just, if that's it, I'm not going to trade what I think ultimately this could be for what I could have immediately. And it was so good that you did that, because it would, like you said, it's a, 50% more than what you would have gotten just taking that first thing. And so many things, I think, for those advisors that are listening out there, especially if you're working in the business market, and this pertains to all areas of life, but it's just real easy to do it because you're running, you're tired. And what it does is it creates instant margin. And so you're thinking, I could have this right now. And we're oftentimes, so a story like Whitney's is so good because people are like so ready to do the transaction. And you could say, hey, what I've learned in these is have a a mentality of where you're going to be professionally patient here to understand, is it what you want ultimately? And if you look back and you'd waited a year or 2 years or 3 years, would it be a radically better outcome? Most likely. I mean, and there's always uncertainty, but I think I see it happen so many times. And a lot of these people that have the capability to come in and buy these things, they know, and they see and seize upon that thing of, we could offer them a sizable enough carrot to where it's cool enough to them go, and okay, I'll just do it, instead of them doing the due diligence on it. So I think it's a great point.
Yeah. I also think there's another nugget there of just the importance of knowing your value, like knowing your worth and like your proposition worth, like as an individual, but then also like within your company. And I think that's key for advisors looking to make transition. We start talking about like fee-based advising. I know it's one of the hiccups or the things that we run into is like, how do you decide on what like a fee is? And like people talk about the fear of trying to ask for, a fee in response to the service that they're providing. And I think that comes from what you mentioned, is just having the confidence of knowing like what that value is to be able to negotiate from that point.
Yeah, that's great, man. So, Whit, if you would, I'd like to kind of take a time machine a bit and go back when I met you. We were in a business professionals course. We were both just trying to get better at running, creating value in the marketplace, making our own human capital more valuable. Tell us about what you were doing back then.
So that was 2013, and I had, so I'd finished about 11 years in the Marine Corps. I had about a year break in between that, and I started working as a police officer in Arizona, northern Arizona. Moved down to central, southern, whatever you want to call it, Phoenix area. I was a Tempe police officer, where I met my wife, got married, and we were pregnant with our first kid when I started that course with you. And so I was, in this business professionals course with people like yourself and many others who business professionals, people who had been in business their lives. And I was a 40-hour week cop. Before that, I was a Marine. And before that, I was a high school student. So I went straight out of high school in the Marine Corps.
It's the normal path to success. Yeah,
right.
That's the pattern.
Right. And so I'm, with folks like you, hearing people talk about pro formas and EBITDAs and, rates of return and this and that. Never knew these terms, never heard these terms in my life, didn't know what they meant. I was Googling every word that came out of y'all's mouths so that I could at least just understand what everybody was saying. And, at the time I had bought the first facility in Tempe, and I was working on improving that and building it up, at least getting it full again. And, as we worked through that first 2 years together, I bought a second one in Queen Creek, and those were the two that I had sold on this exit here in 21. And all the while, I was learning all this fundamental philosophy, like what you and I were learning. But at the same time, I had zero specifics to put underneath that. So I was, also having to learn, business, basic accounting and, you know, how to do, all these different things that are just common. They're not special. They're not anything that, somebody would look at and go, oh, you know how to do that. No, that's the ante. Everybody needs to know these things
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you're going to be
Love
in
that.
business. So I had to go and learn all that stuff along with what was, the valuable and important things, which is the fundamentals. And that definitely enabled me to learn specifics faster in terms of what mattered and what didn't. Um, we were having kids, one every 20 months or something like that. And I was, working 40 hours a week as a, uniform patrol police officer, nights, I think, for the first couple of years. Yeah.
That's awesome,
Which
man.
actually, what was somewhat of, and people look at that and they go, oh man. But in reality, I worked 4 10s. So I had 3 days off and I was new-ish. So I'd usually be working over the weekends. So my days off were usually like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or something like that. So, well, when do business people work? In the week, right? So, what to most people was a detriment, to me it was like, well, I can use these lemons here and make some lemonade out of it, because at least now I have these days, because later on in my career when I was working weekdays, daytime hours and during the week, it was like, oh crap, I can't be at this meeting. Oh, I can't take that call. Oh, I can't be doing this because I'm at work,
Yeah.
and ultimately work got in the way of my career. So that's when I left work.
I love it, man. And there's a couple of just nuggets in there that I've seen you implement well. That when you bring up the word, it was the ante, right? It was the ante to play the game that you needed to play, but you were willing to do it. Is the other side, because a lot of people they try and play the game without the ante and they fail, and which is what was so cool, because we're in there, and again, it was some of us may have known different terms than others, but we were all just trying to figure it out. We were all trying to learn, and we were failing in stuff, and we're going, what? I would say if there was one common denominator of everybody that we still keep up with that like made it through the gauntlet of that, it was
Yeah.
everybody's going to pay the ante. What is it that I need to get? How do I do good with what I've got today? Not
Right.
victim. It was all people that were like, I'm looking out the window, not in the, I'm not looking out the window. I'm looking in the mirror to say, what do I need to do to be good at what I need to be good at in order to play this game well and enjoy it?
And by the way, and you're right, um, even prior to getting to the course that you and I were in and landing on RV and boat storage and buying the first one at Tempe, I went through a dozen bowling alleys, car washes, restaurants, laundromats. I mean, and there's probably 6 more I'm forgetting right now, but I went through all of those types of businesses, and not just like, philosophically, like I found brokers and went and looked at the specific facilities or the deals or the whatever, got the numbers, went through, used, with my mentors. And I had gone through a whole cadre of these types of things to get to the end of like, well, that's not going to work for, whatever reasons. Till finally after, however many, oh, this one looks like it's got all these parts and pieces that I think I need. And, here's one that I think I can do. And, that's, when you talk about the ante, most people like, oh, I love, whatever. Well, here's a famous one, right? Like 2 guys, having a few beers. We should open a bar. That's a great idea. Let's do that. Here's what we'll call it. It'll be this. It'll be that. Okay, fine. You like drinking, and sure, that doesn't mean it's going to be a good business, right? And so people often would be like, well, how the heck does a Marine cop, guy who's never done, how do you end up in RV and boat storage? Wow, I'm just so passionate about RVs, Wes. The tires are
Love
I can
storing things.
armor all of them. It's just no, it's because I was clear on where I was trying to get to, and I just needed to find things that would fit there to help me get where I needed to go. And, so having that lens, but again, I had to go learn that even before the business professionals course, I had to go learn that kind of stuff. And, so that I could show up and find, what was a good place to start.
Yeah. And man, I would say, like, if there's a major takeaway from today for everybody listening, because I knew you then, and for us, the amount of money we were spending on our own personal development was massive relative to the budgets that we had to work with. And we paid that price, but we also paid the price with engaging in that learning, because we had plenty of people. There's the old proverb, "Why is there in the hand of the fool the purchase price for wisdom?" Because he has no heart for it. And a lot of people will sign up for the class. First, most people never sign up. Most people never pay the ante to go to the class, because they're like, I just got to figure it out myself. Recognizing that you need help and you need people that are wise to glean from and speak into you. It is a trait that is universal across the most successful people I know, and that you and I both know. And second is, like, not only will you pay for the admission, but you engage in the learning, you work it, and it's not convenient. And it's never like, I just got all this extra time, so I might as well do it. It's like, no, I've got all this work, and I've got things I could do, and I've got kids I'm raising, and I want to be a good dad, and I want to do this. But the people that are the most successful do it because it's never going to be convenient. There's always going to be other things you can spend time on. But even now, I would tell you, now the budget's bigger to go get next level learning, but it is an ethic within your life. You constantly are investing in new atmospheres to continue to develop the way you see and think and move, so that you can do those things more powerfully. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, one of the things that you definitely, you said, what did you say? You said, yeah, I think I could figure it out. I'll figure it out on my own, or I'm going to figure it out on my own. And that is one of the things I promise you will not figure it out on your own. What you will do, though, is you will do all the work on your own. And when you go into that mindset of, trying to do it alone.
Yeah.
Or wow, that's a lot of money. I don't want to spend money on, or the time, or whatever it is, to learn this stuff. You're closing yourself up, because you may find, like, okay, you may go pay money, do a course, and it might suck. Okay, well, what you learned not that. And if you're thoughtful and you apply that, okay, you learn something, and you're going to put that into your bag of knowledge and wisdom. But if you just show up, like you're not there to learn anything, I promise you won't. And you will have wasted the money along the way. And the people who are curious, not that hard for them typically. People who are not typically, or not naturally curious, not naturally open, I don't have any silver bullet there, other than notice that if that's where you are, and start there.
That's awesome. So I love what I hear in that too is tenure does not equal competence and ability. Tenure in any role, it makes you older, but it's like iterative tenure, like evaluated experience doesn't make you better. Evaluated experience that you continue to iterate upon makes you better. And just understanding, so everybody that's listening out there, you're listening you're listening because you believe there's ideas out there that, if discovered and applied, would make your life better and make you better at life. And many of you are, been through our class Transform that we teach. And because you realize I want to pay the ante, I want to get to the next level. And I know that this stuff, if discovered and applied, would make my life better, make me better at life. And again, if there's these common denominators, no matter what business you've discovered and are in, that we've noticed, that I've seen you really execute well, that constant curiosity of being in wonder, being in a state of not defending the normal, not defending the way you've always done it, and saying, I want to discover and apply new, challenge my normal with new. And clearly you've been great at that and had great success. As we close today, one, thanks for being a part of the podcast. This knowledge has been super valuable to everybody, super transferable and universal. Anything else you want to add before we wrap that's just been useful?
Yeah, you said something right there about, learning. And one of the things that I notice that makes a difference, and it made a difference for me, but it's something that I notice in everyone. People like to get thinking and read books and go to talks from people who are successful and people who have accomplishments. And that's great. And I do it too. However, what matters is what you take away and then go and do yourself and iterate there. Because if you go and read someone's book, or you take someone's course and you go out there with that cookie cutter plate and you say, okay, I'm going to do exactly this. Well, that's not going to I haven't seen that work.
Yeah.
Because whoever wrote that book, Stephen Covey, for example, how many Stephen Covey books do we think there are on planet Earth?
Oh yeah, a bunch.
Okay, so why isn't the land littered with Stephen Coveys?
Yeah.
Okay, because you take those books and then you have to be the mad scientist yourself, the Stephen Covey of whatever it is you're going to go do, and you have to invent. You have to iterate. You're going to get thinking from all over the place, and you're going to develop. Same thing. You can apply that methodology to, all of the Grant Cardones and the Tony Robbins and all of them. And I'm not saying anything bad about any of those guys. They're all great and they all have great thinking. It's just you have to take that and then you got to internalize it, and then you got to go out there and you got to start and you got to do what you're going to do, and you got to make it yours and work it.
Yeah, I love that, Whitney, because I heard a great quote said, unapplied truth is like unapplied paint. It doesn't do anybody any good. So you can be gathering your buckets of paint and put them on the shelf, but unless you actually do something with it, unless you actually get the paintbrush and go to work, you're not becoming the person you're capable of being. Go be faithful with that knowledge instead of going and getting the next new thing.
I have gotten tons and tons of great counsel and advice from really, really accomplished, smart people. And often it's great, but it's not uncommon that I get it and I go and I'm like, oh crap, that went really bad. That did not go well at all. Holy smokes, this was a bad idea and nothing went right. Okay. And I got to the end of that and I was like, all right, well, maybe next time I would do it this way. And maybe also I would add in or whatever, right? Like you come out of that with something. So, again, just going back to like, you have to go out and work this stuff and figure out how you're going to paint your painting, because it's not good. You can't paint the same way that Cardone and Robbins and Covey and those guys do it. You got to paint the way you're paint.
Love it, man. Whit, thanks so much for being on the show, my friend. It's been super, super valuable.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
It really was a pleasure today. And you made me think, I believe it's Nelson Mandela who's credited to, said, I never lose. I either win or I learn. And I really think that
Yep.
your story kind of embodied the mindset of the journey that you took going from busy to rich. And again, going back to the transferability of that, of no matter what industry you're in or where you're at in your practice, like that still applies. So thank you again. We really hope that
you only lose when you quit.
That's right.
The only time you fail.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you can't smoke a quitter, we used to say. All right, like that. That's the point. Like you just keep pushing forward. But yeah, so really enjoyed it. Hope you, our listeners, enjoyed that today. And as always, we'd love to hear from you guys. So leave us a review or send us an email. And until next time, thank you all for listening.